All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to be talking to an individual who had, I would say, the big standout performance of XFC 52, which transpired on March 28th, and it was a great card, so that's definitely saying something, and doing so in his professional MMA debut, no less. Very excited to be talking to Jaron Lathrop and getting some great insights on this massive win and covering a few subjects, but how are you doing, man?
I'm good and Lathrop, sorry.
No, no, all good, man. That
Uh,
is sorry, go ahead.
I'm used to it. I don't think I've ever met someone that's gotten my name right the first time, first or last name.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can get that out there a little bit for the public. Jaron Lathrop.
Yeah, just so people know, it's Jaron Lathrop, not Jaron Lathrop or Jaron Lathrop or whatever the announcers or commentators usually say. It's Jaron Lathrop.
Well, people are going to be really knowing the name after a win like that, man. Like, how does it feel to have all of this, I guess, like surge of attention and just because it seems like so many of the MMA websites are really talking about it, like MMA Fighting did a piece centric on it, and just so many different websites in this space really covering it justifiably. So, like, how does, I guess, all of this influx of attention feel after a win like that?
The weekend of it was a little overwhelming. Like my phone was just absolutely blown up with notifications and stuff, but it hasn't been too much after that. Like I wasn't really paying attention to much of the social media stuff after the weekend. I was more concerned with just getting back to family and friends and people who reached out to me about it. But the attention online from media outlets and stuff hasn't been too crazy. I haven't paid attention to it that much.
Is that not something that really factors into any of your approach or what you're doing? Like, is it not something that's kind of within your purview? Because understandable if it's not, but yeah, is that not something that really holds a lot of weight for you? Like, maybe it's just outside noise and you're focused on just what you're doing.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. I know it's good. It's good exposure. It's good, I guess, marketing for me as an athlete and as a performance. But to me, what matters most is just delivering those performances and making sure that I'm training right and just doing the things I need to do to keep winning.
And I saw you had a post about the fight talking about how you felt like you had taken some good shots early, but always trying to finish the fight and taking on someone in Yevgeni Shinkarevsky, who had already had two professional fights before and had a 2-0 ledger before you guys got out there. So you were kind of talking about, I guess, some of the earlier resistance. Like outside of that, though, was there anything in this fight that surprised you or particularly kind of like stood out to you? Like maybe something that belied your preconceived idea of what you might have thought your pro debut in the sport would be?
I mean, not really, I guess. Like I said, I'm always going for the finish in my fights. I've throughout my amateur career, I think of my 13 fights, maybe only a four or five of them went to decision, something like that, or something like that. I think I have eight finishes or nine finishes by submission, and then or maybe nine finishes overall, something like that. But just even if I'm, because I felt down in the first round, just in the first like 2 or 3 minutes, like I knew he landed the better shots. He caught me early, and I think I was a little too into the moment in like just being excited to fight and being excited to make that debut. So I think like just right off the rip, my feet were set pretty flat. I just sat there in range, and he caught me with a good right hand and a left behind it, and then I was like, "Oh wow!" And then I could hear his corner saying like, "There's 2 minutes left. You're winning this round," and I'm like, "Damn." I gotta start fighting. This is not how this is supposed to go. I gotta actually start fighting. And then I started getting more comfortable putting stuff together, and then the finish happened. So, but yeah, I don't think there was anything that really surprised me about the whole experience or the fight in general. Even if I'm down on the cards or in the eyes of myself or my opponent. Like I'm always coming for the finish and I'm always gonna win the fight. So
And do you think this aware, like, did you have a similar thing in your amateur MMA debut in a sense? Like, it was almost like the way you were talking about your pro debut was like there was a certain level of pressure or at least consideration to the fact that it was your debut in the professional ranks. Like, is that something that you had also kind of felt in your amateur MMA debut as like a thing you were comparing it to per se, or?
honestly, I'm not 100% sure because my amateur debut is four 4.5 years ago at this point, but I it didn't go my way. I lost that fight, but that feeling of like, okay, I've been training for this. I gotta win this and like show what I'm made of and everything like that. To go out in my amateur debut and lose with that sort of like extra little pressure and weight, uh, just kind of lit a fire in me. And I never want to feel that way again. Taking a loss sucks. Um, that's what sparring rounds are for in the gym. If you're gonna lose and get beat up, do it in the gym, not in a fight. Fights are to win and make money.
Well, it looks like the lesson was firmly entrenched in you thereafter because the winning streak definitely speaks to that in your amateur MMA run. And like you said, I mean, a myriad of submissions through the stretch from what I was seeing and doing my research on you, just various rear naked chokes, arm triangle chokes, etc. I would think that there would be some part of that where I guess presuming there's people who are, just taking in your skill set for the first time through the lens of this wild spinning back KO. It's like you have a much more well-rounded, multifaceted game than one might be able to infer just from watching that one fight. So I would think that would maybe impart a certain level of confidence, just being that you have so many unseen tools in terms of like people who are just seeing what you're doing in the pro ranks and all.
Yeah, I think going into the professional debut, talking with the media people and the other journalists or commentators and stuff for XFC, they were noting that like the number of submissions and stuff that I have in my amateur career and just assumed that I have a pretty heavy grappling background and jujitsu background, which no. I wrestled in high school and then all of my ground game relating to MMA is just purely been developed at my gym, Cedar Rapids Boxing, and then like I've never done a jujitsu class. I don't have a belt in anything. Um, I've never taken a kickboxing class. Everything is just kind of based around the coaches that I have and the people that they choose to bring into the gym. Like just because he's coming in tonight, I think he's got a surprise for one of our coaches. But Steve Carl, um, kind of little MMA fame right there. He's kind of a legend. He comes into our gym about once a week. Um, and I think he's got his black belt now for jujitsu. So working with him is huge in that realm.
But what's I was saying, I mean, it's very much of the times in a certain sense. Like it's almost like you're training the overall game of mixed martial arts as a singular, albeit amalgamated discipline, and maybe like you're not doing the compartmentalized specific classes like you said, a jiu-jitsu class, kickboxing class, etc. It's like you're demonstrably learning these skills, but in the context of a singular but amalgamated art in MMA. So that's really interesting to hear that. And yeah, shout out to Steve Carl, definitely a
Yeah.
resume that speaks for itself too.
And that's how we approach our training. And that's like one of the criticisms that we have of other gyms and fighters in the area or just kind of all over, I guess, is that when they train, excuse me, they train the individual aspects of MMA, like the jujitsu or the wrestling, boxing, and kickboxing. They have all their own separate classes or training days for those, and then they'll have their MMA days where they mix everything together, like sparring and whatnot. But for us, the sport is MMA, so that's what we're going to train. We're going to train just the the sport of mixing all that together and knowing when to use certain facets of your game in the fight because it's not just a kickboxing match, it's not just a boxing match, not jujitsu, it's not just wrestling. And if you can't blend all that stuff together, you're really like kind of disabling yourself in a way where you're not able to really bring out all those skills because you're thinking about it compartmentalized versus all together.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned the amateur wrestling that you did in high school, which I noticed in kind of combing through some of your social media, but I was also noticing you seemed like you were into football as well. Like I was
Hmm.
seeing you were shouting out your last homecoming game as a Prairie Hawk and all of that. What was it about fighting that stood out as like something to pursue, I guess like longer term as compared to football, like maybe more opportunities per se, or like what I guess kind of informed that focus?
Um, I was like for football and wrestling and stuff in high school, like I was okay at both of them. I've always been a really hard worker. And for football, if I was like 4 inches taller and could get up to like 190, I probably would have stayed with football because I'm pretty fast, I'm really strong. I think I'd be a pretty good athlete for football, but in terms of fighting, um, specifically with MMA, because I tried boxing when I first started at Cedar Rapids Boxing, and I went one in, or no, yeah, I went 1-2, and I was also fighting at a weight class I had no business being in. I was fighting in like the 150s or something. Um, but just with boxing compared to MMA, there's just so many rules, and they just have like the refs have so much control of how you manipulate your opponent and the ways that you can cause damage to them. So the appeal for me in MMA is just honestly the lack of rules and the tool set that you can develop to get the fight done and to do the job, which is dishing out damage and finishing your opponent.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely on display, and it's kind of a curious thing because I can't imagine a technique like that you would be like practicing with like a partner per se. Like, is this something that in some capacity you've been drilling in the gym and honing your skills around to utilize within the body of the fight here? Because, like I said, it's kind of curious thing to be practicing with someone in the gym. Like, I would imagine that's obviously not something you're doing, like maybe more of like a pad work kind of thing, even. Like, I guess, can you kind of pull back the fourth wall on all of that? Like, if that was something you were ardently, specifically drilling and everything like that?
Um, so I think initially, like just that whole little move started when I was just messing around on the heavy bag and throwing question mark kicks. And then I just kind of discovered that if I throw a question mark kick with my lead foot and I can bring my lead foot down really quickly to plant and then throw that spinning back kick like that, little sneaky thing to get in there to get that kick in there from trying to place that spinning back kick where I can get their hands busy or their thought about the question mark kick or a head kick and then turn that around into that spinning back kick. But as for like the specific sequence of the fight, I've done it in sparring a handful of times, but I've never landed it like a single time. So the fact that it landed and it landed so clean and was able to knock him down and everything in the fight was just like just coincidental gold.
And I mean, it's already getting shouted out in a context of like early in the year, like knockout of the year candidate, that type of language. And I think a lot of people were connecting it to that Joaquin Buckley
Hmm.
spinning kick KO over Impa Kasanganai, which did end up garnering that knockout of the year distinction in 2020 when that had happened. Like, how much, if at all, was that fight an influence to you in terms of practicing this technique, etc., or just general thoughts on even getting compared to a finish like that as well?
When I started like messing around with it at the gym, it wasn't really on my mind because I think at that point the his knockout, excuse me, his knockout had already been like a year or two after like past. So, but I do think after that knockout, our coach was having us do a little bit of work with like if someone catches your foot like that. not necessarily with the spin kick, but just working off of like finding offense and stuff off of someone else catching your kick. Um, as for like the comparisons and relation to his knockout, I think it's sick. It's so cool. Like he shouted me out on, or I don't know if he shouted me out on Instagram, but he reacted to it on Instagram and did a little commentary on it. That was kind of funny. But just to have someone from the UFC notice your fight and give a take on your fight is it's just cool. Like I don't know, no, I don't really know how else to put it. It's just it's a cool feeling. Like this dude's where I'm trying to get to, and he's reacting to my first professional fight. That's cool.
Yeah, and I guess just to the point of where you're trying to get to and what could even represent a next step. Like obviously I want you to really enjoy the fruits of your labor here and a great win and everything like that. But like what is I guess the nature of your arrangement with XFC? Like is this like a singular fight deal and it's kind of like Dunzo in a sense? Is it like a multi-fight arrangement? Are you kind of like a free agent right now looking for potential individuals that might want to take you on for your sophomore pro fight? Like, where are you at in that regard?
So the the XFC fight was just a single one fight deal. They said they're trying to work on getting multi fight deals done, but that'll be sometime in the future. So right now, yeah, free agent. Kind of just back to business as usual. Like the last 5 or 6, maybe more, fights of my amateur. Yeah, about five. The last 5 fights of my amateur career was getting really, really hard to find opponents, and it was really hard to find an opponent for my pro debut. Um, my last amateur fight was in July of last year, and we basically started looking for a professional debut as soon as that fight was over, and it took us until March to actually get an opponent, or 6 or 4 weeks out was when we got the call that we were gonna get this fight going. So it took a while. So we're just kind of back in that boat of put my name out there, see who can find an opponent, see who's gonna be willing to pay me what I deserve to be paid, and all that fun stuff.
And this could resonate as a strange question, obviously, but is there a certain consideration to just the nature of this spectacular finish you got in your pro debut, no less? Like, is there any thought that there's going to be similar hindrances or difficulties getting matchups as you were talking about in the later stages of your amateur MMA run there? Or is there an exciting part of being a pro now where you feel like there's going to be that abundance of opportunities? Like, do you think that in a way, this could create a similar environment that potentially hinders opponents being like very willing to jump on board and get in the cage with you? Or how do you, I guess, see all of that?
I'm hoping it's not a hindrance, um, because it is just it gets really monotonous and boring to just like I love training, but training without a perceivable goal is you can only do it for so long. Like from July till December, I was probably in the gym 5 or 6 days a week, just consistent as hell with it. And then after that point, it was just like, man, am I gonna find somebody? But I was obviously still training and getting in there and doing what I need to do. But yeah, I hope it's not a hindrance. I hopefully people see the highlight and think like I got to show who I am. That's one of the things that just because of my lack of opportunity with finding opponents, I guess, that never really made sense to me. There's a lot of guys that have said just straight up no to fighting me and for my professional debut. And just to me, I don't understand how you can be a fighter and say no to a fight. Like I've never had the option necessarily either, and that's how I like it. When I train and just how it is with my coach, I just train, I come in, I do my hours, have a good time, and then when he tells me that I have a fight coming up, If it's 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is, we go, okay, we're gonna button down even harder now, get camp going, get the conditioning right up where we need it to be. Um, he doesn't say like, hey, do you want this fight? He just says, hey, I got you a fight, and I go, okay, cool. So I wish more people were like that, but hopefully, guys will be excited to fight me now and not put it off.
And you'd kind of touched on the Buckley connectivity, and as far as like he's representative of someone that's at a spot where I would like to be. Like, does that dream, like, is it specifically representative of you eventually becoming a UFC contracted athlete and, pursuing a career with that company thereafter? Like, is that kind of like the North Star, like main goal in a sense that you would like to actualize into reality with your MMA efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the UFC, but that obviously is the upper echelon. That's the premier fighting organization. So for me, the overarching goal is just to be able to have fighting be my job, have it be my career, my sole source of income, basically, where I'm fighting and I'm making enough money to live and just be just be free, I guess, in life and fighting and not have to worry about working a second job and whatnot. So if it's the UFC, awesome. If it's a different organization like Bellator, PFL, and even one championship or something and the like, as long as I'm able to make my living and live well, that's the goal for me.
Yeah, I feel like localizing it to the UFC, I feel like they're in a decent period of promoting the featherweights and stuff like that. Because unfortunately, they've had at best like certain tumultuous times with properly spotlighting the division and giving its due, I would say. But it seems like it's a strong era with obviously Alessandro Pantoja helming the division as the champion and just some exemplary top contenders like Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno in those top two spots right now per the last update, and the rumblings of Kyoji Horiguchi returning to the fold and looking to kind of re-enter as a flyweight. So it would seem like exciting times for the 125-pound weight class in the UFC at present.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I understand your average viewer wants to see heavyweights and they want to see big knockouts and whatnot. And unfortunately, the knockouts don't always come from the lighter weight classes, just kind of inherently with the lesser power and such. But it's like 125 to 145. Those three weight classes are just they're lightning, they're fire. Everybody's so fast, everybody's strong and athletic. You don't get anybody who's really kind of lacking in athletic ability. If you're going to be a fighter and you're going to be at this weight class specifically, you have to be an athlete. And if you're not, you're just not going to survive. Like the guys in light heavyweight and heavyweight, you can be a slug, you can be a big thick guy who hits hard and not be a great athlete and still succeed. You're not doing that with with the flyweight weight class. Like if you're not fast, if you're not technical, you're just not going to survive.
Yeah, and that was partly why I phrased the earlier question about like why did you pursue MMA as opposed to going more in the football direction, because I think it was on the Jackson podcast actually where TJ Dillashaw was talking about MMA as like one of the few sports that, gives opportunities to people who maybe don't have like that certain, not physique per se, but certain physical dimensions that one might see in like the NFL or a lot of the, I guess, like team sports oriented, like big name kind of leagues and stuff like that. And I was like, that actually does make a tremendous amount of sense, just MMA as a vehicle for people to pursue athletic opportunities. Like you said, at the lighter weight classes where there's that lightning quick kind of dynamic where the athletic ability is paramount.
Yeah, it's just if you're an athlete and you're not at the size to play football or like even baseball players are big. Those dudes, they look small in the field, but those dudes are big. Like baseball players are like 200 pounds plus sometimes. Just those guys are different athletes too. Baseball doesn't get enough respect for the level of athleticism that those guys have. But yeah, for small guys like me, there's just not a whole lot of avenues to be successful, especially professionally in athletics. Like I said earlier, I've always been strong. I've always been a hard worker, but on the football field, it's at a certain point it doesn't really matter. Like I was like 160 at my heaviest in high school trying to play football like that. All the other running backs are like 190 plus. All the other linebackers and stuff are like 190 plus. So I'm at a huge disadvantage with that, and I'm not tall enough to be a corner or anything really. So yeah, just the avenue of athletics in MMA is it's I appreciate it a lot that there is this pathway to follow for someone of my stature.
No, it's great to see people get opportunities and have the chance to, pursue their dreams and all that. I guess something that I kind of wanted to touch on too, because I love the, Steve Carl connection, such a wealth of information, like just his resume, like I was saying before, just incredible. I mean, has fought guys like Kamaru Usman, the current welterweight champion, Bilal Muhammad. I imagine when you're in the gym, it's very focused and just getting in that work in. But has Steve Carl ever, imparted any stories from back in the day when he's fighting really some of the top names in the sport overall?
I can't think of any specific stories he's told just off the top of my head, but I know those conversations do happen. And Steve's just an absolute like goon. He's a goofy ass dude. So he's always fun to talk with and just share stories with and just kind of hang out with, after practice or on the way to fights or anything like that. He's just a fun guy. But yeah, all that knowledge and experience is invaluable. It's just there's it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so important, man. I guess like one kind of like final thing that I wanted to touch on, like, do you have an idea in your head of when you would next like to get out there? Like, obviously, you're talking about being a free agent and you're looking to, I guess, be compensated what you feel like you're worth and everything like that. But is there like an idealistic timeline in your head where you'd like to have your sophomore pro MMA fight?
I'm ready whenever. I'm working on starting to get back into the gym consistent again. Took a week off to just hang out, relax, spend some time with the girlfriend and such. Um, but yeah, I mean, when I was it's like I said earlier, it's business as usual, just like in the amateurs. Um, having time off is nice, but fighting every like 3 or 4 months is what I'd like to do. I think when I started as an amateur, I had like one fight every 2 months ish for like the first 2 years of my amateur career, which was it was fun. I think it was a little bit too much, but I like that high pace of just training and fighting. There's no time in between to slack off and get out of shape. There's no time to like get in your head about the training or about fighting or anything like that. It's just kind of go, go, go. And I really like that environment of training. I don't like training without a purpose. So having consistent fights is what I'm looking for. So yeah, I think there might be a show coming up in May or something like that. So hopefully sometime this summer I get another fight. But yeah, I'm ready to get back to it.
Yeah, such an incredible pro win. So I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of curiosity to see the second go around and everything. But you've been really great with your time, man. I wanted to give you the floor though, in case you had any kind of final parting thought you might have wanted to add as we're sort of wrapping up here on Bowks Talking Bouts.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the interview and helping me, I guess, get my name out there a little bit more and let people get to know me a little bit better. Um, I guess just check me out on Instagram. I think if I remember correctly, my MMA one is Jaron Protect Your Neck Lathrop because of the submissions. Um, but yeah, and I mean, if you just look up Jaron Lathrop on Google, you'll find me. So
Yeah, well, Jaron Lathrop, I think, is going to be a name that people are hearing quite a bit after that massive finish at XFC 52. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on the program to give insights after such an impactful win, man. Hopefully, the first of many chats to come. But in any event, great getting to talk today, and you enjoy the rest of your night, man. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.